Now, when it comes to connecting into a virtual machine in Azure, there's various ways we can do it. For one, if it's a Windows machine, we typically would use remote desktop protocol for that, which is port 3389. You open up remote desktop, you connect to the address, and away you go. You can connect in. With Linux, we generally use SSH, Secure Shell, which uses port 22. Now, Microsoft says, and I think most security professionals will agree, that exposing those ports directly with a public address is not the safest thing in the world to do, especially if you don't have some kind of a firewall protecting. It's fine and dandy to have an NSG, right? Like if I go here, let's go look at I have a virtual machine called WinServer 1. If I click the menu here and I go to resource groups, I've got a resource group called VM Destination, and that's where my virtual machine is, and I've got an NSG. If I click on it, and you can see that I'm allowing RDP, and then there's this little warning message that kind of tells you that, hey, RDP port 3389 is exposed to the internet. This is only recommended for testing. For production environments, we recommend using a VPN or private connection. Granted, when they created that message has been in place for years, and they did not even support what was called a Bastion before that. So a Bastion is another solution that is secure for getting into this as well. But ultimately, in a perfect world, what you want to do is you want to have what's called a VPN gateway, or you want to be using something called ExpressRoute, which is a direct connection into Azure and a secure connection to Azure. And then you're not having to expose those ports completely. But alternatively, as opposed to implementing a VPN gateway or ExpressRoute, you can also use this thing called a Bastion. So let's see how we can connect into our virtual machines here. So if I go back over to the VM Destination resource group where I've got my virtual machine that I've set up called WinServer 1, if I click on WinServer 1, there is a drop-down tab here called Connect. I can click that, and then from there, if I want to do RDP, I can. And granted, the way I've done it in the past is I just, copy this address. I open up, I search on my computer for the word remote desktop connection. I put the address in, hit connect, authenticate, and boom, I'm now connected in my virtual machine, right? But I'm actually going to close out of that now. I had that open. I'm going to close it. But anyway, if I wanted to do it this other way, I could choose this, and it'll actually download a RDP file that you can just open up, right? You can just click open file, hit connect, put your credentials in, like so, and here I am connecting into that virtual machine again, okay? So that works just fine. That's just another way that I can, go about connecting into my virtual machine. Okay, I'm going to close out of that now. If you've installed SSH, now if it's a Windows server, you probably don't have SSH installed. You can install SSH, but you could use SSH for connecting. In Linux virtual machines, you could do that. In fact, there's a very popular program that people use for SSH. It's called PuTTY. You can go out and just do a quick Google search, and you can download PuTTY for free, and you can connect in through SSH. But the whole point of this lecture that I'm doing with you here is to help you understand that you could support what's called a Bastion, and a Bastion is a more secure way of doing it. You want to think of a Bastion as kind of like a DMZ. Now, when I say that demilitarized zone or perimeter network, essentially the idea is that you have a secure connection for getting into this machine, and you're not having to expose port 3389. Now, the way that we did that in a DMZ is we used this thing called a reverse proxy. With reverse proxying, you could expose internal boxes over certain ports without exposing the original port and the original boxes that you were actually trying to allow people to connect into. So what this Bastion is going to do is it's going to allow me to, instead of exposing 3389 and allowing a direct connection, we're just going to expose port 443, which is the HTTPS port, and everything's going to get encrypted and securely going to allow you to get into this machine using remote desktop, or if you were using a Linux box, port would be SSH, but you're not using port 22 for SSH, you're not using 3389 for remote desktop, you're going to be using 443, which is a much more secure way of allowing somebody to connect in, and they'll actually connect in using their web browser as opposed to having to open up remote desktop. So we're going to go right here, and we're going to click Use Bastion, and then from there we're going to go and click on Create Bastion. Now, one word of warning, it does tell you that Bastion pricing starts with an hourly base rate. So yes, there is going to be a little bit of money involved here. And so you would want to, you can learn more about the cost of that, see what the rate is per hour, okay, for utilizing this. But it is a very secure way of handling things. As you can see, it's not super expensive, especially if you're dealing with a highly important virtual machine in a big company. But anyway, medium to large company. Maybe for a small company, you have one little virtual machine and money's very tight. You might not want to do this. You could find another way to do it securely, maybe VPN gateway or something like that. But in the end, this can be a very effective and secure way of handling it. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click to create Azure Bastion using defaults here. And it is going to go through the process of creating that Bastion, and I'm going to pause the recording while that's happening. Okay, so the Bastion is finally created, and just kind of a word of warning on this, it does take about 15-20 minutes for that to usually process through. So here we are, and I'm going to go ahead and put my credentials in. Let's kind of go back, though. If we were starting from the beginning and we wanted to connect to the Bastion, let's go to resource groups, our menu button, resource groups. Let's go to VM destination. Let's click on our VM, which is Win Server 1. Don't forget, you can always click menu and go to virtual machines as well. But from there, we connect Bastion, and there we are. Brings us back to that screen. So I'm going to put in my credentials, which was ELP admin, Exam Lab Practice admin, password, and then I'm going to put my password in here. And then at that point, I'm going to hit connect. It's going to open up in a new browser tab. All right, I'm going to go ahead and allow it. And there you go. I'm now officially connected to my my virtual machine using my web browser. And so I can switch back and forth just like if I was, just like a normal web page. So you can see it's HTTPS up here. So it is using a secure connection, and I'm not having to open up port 3389. So this is going to be a very secure way for you to connect in. You're not having to expose port 3389. If I wanted to at this point, I can now go in, and I could go into the NSG for this. And from there, I've got this RDP rule here. And if I was to just delete this rule altogether, let's go ahead and do that. We'll delete the RDP rule. I want to show you a little bit about what's going to happen here. Okay, so we're going to delete the rule. I'm also going to close out of my Bastion connection. So the rule has been deleted. Okay, so we're not allowing 3389 anymore through that. So what I'm going to now do is we'll go back over to overview here, or I'm sorry, we'll go to VM destination. All right, Win Server 1. We'll go to connect, and then Bastion. Okay, put my credentials back in. All right. And you can see that I'm still connected in. Now, watch this. If I open up remote desktop on my local computer and I hit connect, notice that it is not connecting. So I don't have to expose 3389 anymore. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, because how are you able to connect in without 3389? Because technically, this is still going to be using remote desktop, all right, but it's not, but your NSG is saying you're basically now with your NSG, you're no longer allowing that connection. You're no longer allowing that 3389. And the reason for that, so see, there is no 3389 that's allowed anymore, so it would be blocked. And the reason for that is because the Bastion is connecting directly into the server through the Azure network. It is bypassing the NSG, and Azure is handling it through HTTPS. Okay, so I'm no longer having to expose 3389, and I'm still able to successfully get into that virtual machine with the help of that Bastion. Hey, this is John Christopher. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I want you to know that I'm trying really hard to grow this channel, so I hope you'll give me a like and a subscribe. Also, if you'll check the description in this video, I've got a link for you that can show you how you can get access to all my different courses. I have lots of different Microsoft certification courses that'll help you pass your exam. All right, thanks a lot for watching the video, and I hope to see you again.